Okay. Hey, everybody. This is Ben with Concerned Canines, and we're doing the first of a couple of scheduled chats here. I don't have a fun, nifty name for this. I'm a dog trainer I'm a certified professional dog trainer in Pensacola, Florida, and I'm an aggression and anxiety specialist. And today I'm talking to Sue Alexander at Dogs in the Park and the Dog Trainer Crucible. And I'm going to butcher the name. Is it Guelph or Guelph, Ontario?
Guelph,
Guelph.
as if it was GWELF. Guelph.
Okay. In Guelph, Ontario, she's a mentor and a friend of mine. I've taken a couple of classes with Sue. She really knows her stuff. And today we're talking about breed specific behaviors. But I wanted Sue to take a second, introduce herself, your credentials. How long have you been training dogs again?
Okay, so I have been professionally training dogs for 33 years. I'm a certified professional dog trainer, knowledge and skills assessed. I'm a certified behavior consultant, knowledge assessed, and I'm a certified dog behavior consultant. And I have been training dogs for a lot more years than that, since I was about 12 years old. So that's over 40 years of dog training that I've got under my belt now. We won't say how much over 40 years, but I've been pretty seriously interested in dogs and dog behavior since I was a little kid. And I've got below me, you'll see me keep looking down here, Ben, and I'm sorry, but we have a guest. We have Ember, the Vizsla puppy, who may make an appearance on camera at some point. But right now, she is under my desk chewing on a chewy, and I want her to stay there.
Hopefully she stays. I'm just going to point out, by the way,
choice.
I
She has a
just turned.
leash on.
Oh, good, good. I just turned 39, by the way. So you've been training as long as I've been alive. So
yeah, pretty much.
Okay. So
I'm
we've got a
old.
couple of you're not old. You're just you just leveled up. You're just epic levels. So we've got a couple of questions that a couple of you submitted through various social media platforms, and we're going to start right away because today's topic is breed specific behaviors and dealing with breed specific behaviors as an owner. And the first question is, and this was a very good question, is what are breed specific behaviors? And does breed really matter when it comes to dogs?
It does. It does. And, it's interesting because I have long felt that when we talk about mixed breeds, we can see trends towards what their actual purebred sources are or what trends are similar to purebreds. And I think it goes back to dogs who were the original dogs were called village dogs. Some people may know them as soy dogs or as pot cakes, or there are any number of dogs that are just living in close proximity to us, and they live around us and they hang out, and they're the generic dog. And I always spell it DAWG. It's a dog. We know the generic dog. It's got a leg at each corner, a head at one end, a tail at the other, and it might have floppy ears or it might have semi-erect ears. And these dogs are actually the dogs that evolved into our purebred dogs. And the way that evolution happened was it was technically facilitated by humans. Okay, sweetheart, you can't take your toy under the other chair. And so what happened was many years ago, like at least 13,000, and probably closer to 30,000 years ago. The numbers are kind of a little bit spongy. And there are lots of reasons for that we could go into, but we know that it was a very long time ago. We were living in villages, and we used to walk up the mountain with our sheep, and we did that in the summer when the grass was lush and the sheep were skinny, and we'd walk them up the mountain, and they would eat lots of grass, grow nice coats, get fat, and we would walk them down the mountain. And then in the wintertime, we would keep those sheep in the valleys where they would be able to survive the winter and get skinny again. And so up the mountain in the summer, down the mountain in the winter, up the mountain in the summer, down the mountain in the winter. And wolves are not stupid. And what happened was the more confident wolves said, hey, wait a minute. there is this walking group of calorie makers. And so whenever we would butcher a sheep, we would leave certain parts of it that we didn't eat, like the lungs or maybe the liver, sometimes the heart, maybe the head, and we might not eat it. And so what would happen is the wolves would follow us, and the confident wolves would eat more, and the timid wolves would stay out in the woods. And so what happened was those wolves evolved into the village dogs that just hung out with us. The next major leap that we think happened was the flock guardians, and those are the great big, usually white, but sometimes cream or spotted dogs that just hang out with sheep. They don't eat sheep, but they eat pretty much everything other than sheep, and they follow the sheep around, and they look like sheep. And what they do is they chase off those timid wolves, bears, coyotes, any other predator that might harm the sheep, and those are the flock guardians. And what's really cool about the flock guardians is they lost the ability to hunt. They don't hunt. They are not predatory. They don't chase things down, grab them, shake them, break their neck, and consume prey. What they do is stand between the sheep and the predator and bark their fool heads off. And if confronted closely, they will become incredibly aggressive. But if not confronted, they won't be aggressive at all. And that was the first real breed of dogs. So does breed matter? Sure, because can you imagine a wolf living in a flock of sheep, not eating the sheep, not chasing down prey, but chasing off all the predators? Not really likely. So the next thing that would happen is that some people started having permanent villages. And when you have a permanent village, flock guardians, they're pretty important, but they're not following us around anymore. However, we do something really, really important, and that is we hunt. And so we started using hunting dogs, and these dogs evolved probably from the village dogs shortly after the time, and shortly is relative, a few thousand years probably. They were dogs who would accompany the hunters out and help them to find game or tree game so that the hunters would be more successful. And this is the first time that we start to see sort of cooperative work between humans and dogs. And this comes to us all from archaeology and archaeological evidence. And from there, we know that we have a number. Oh, we have the popcorn dog again. Okay, are you going to come up and say hello? Let me get the hunting Vizsla, who is very exciting at the moment. Oh, Missy.
And if we need to pause, we can always pause.
No, that's all right. She's gonna have.
But someone should. We should see a dog at least once on here. I'm surprised, Christoph.
There you
she's
go.
adorable.
Yes, this is Ember. Yes, do not bite my chin or my clothes or. So, anyways, the after the hunting dogs, we started seeing guarding dogs like the Molossers, so the Mastiffs. So, you know, those dogs started hanging out at the house, and they just said, never mind the sheep, we'll just hang out at the house and we'll guard the house. And again, they weren't seeking out conflict. They weren't seeking out opportunities to get into fights. She's got such a nose on her, and she's just busy smelling. You can see her on the bottom of the camera there. So, you know, at that point, what we've got are dogs who are, you know, more likely to engage in passive guarding. Well, from there, we had some dogs became herding dogs. Again, probably from the village dogs, and those dogs regained being predatory. And the predation that they engage in is actually chasing the flock, but they don't do it in such a way that's going to harm the flock. So it's a moderated predatory behavior. From that point, we started getting some really interesting ones. We got some small breed dogs, and some of those dogs engaged in behaviors such as alarm barking. So dogs like the Lhasa Apso. Lhasa Apso has a very interesting.
Yep, froze a little. All right. Okay. Hey, everybody. This is Ben with Concerned Canines, and we're doing the first of a couple of scheduled chats here. I don't have a fun, nifty name for this. I'm a dog trainer I'm a certified professional dog trainer in Pensacola, Florida, and I'm an aggression and anxiety specialist. And today I'm talking to Sue Alexander at Dogs in the Park and the Dog Trainer Crucible. And I'm going to butcher the name. Is it Guelph or Guelph, Ontario?
Guelph, as in
Guelph.
as if it was GWELF. Guelph.
Okay. In Guelph, Ontario, she's a mentor and a friend of mine. I've taken a couple of classes with Sue. She really knows her stuff. And today we're talking about breed-specific behaviors. But I wanted Sue to take a second, introduce herself, your credentials. How long have you been training dogs again?
Okay, so I have been professionally training dogs for 33 years. I'm a certified professional dog trainer, knowledge and skills assessed. I'm a certified behavior consultant, knowledge assessed, and I'm a certified dog behavior consultant. And I have been training dogs for a lot more years than that, since I was about 12 years old. So that's over 40 years of dog training that I've got under my belt now. We won't say how much over 40 years, but I've been pretty seriously interested in dogs and dog behavior since I was a little kid. And I've got below me, you'll see me keep looking down here, Ben, and I'm sorry, but we have a guest. We have Ember, the Vizsla puppy, who may make an appearance on camera at some point. But right now, she is under my desk chewing on a chewy, and I want her to stay there.
Hopefully she stays. I'm just going to point out, by the way,
Troy, she has a leash on.
Oh, good, good. I just turned 39, by the way. So you've been training as long as I've been alive. So
yep, pretty much.
Okay. So we've got a couple of you're not old. You're just you just leveled up. You're just epic levels. So we've got a couple of questions that a couple of you submitted through various social media platforms, and we're going to start right away because today's topic is breed-specific behaviors and dealing with breed-specific behaviors as an owner. And the first question is, and this was a very good question, is what are breed-specific behaviors, and does breed really matter when it comes to dogs?
It does. It does. And, you know, it's interesting because I have long felt that when we talk about mixed breeds, we can see trends towards what their actual purebred sources are, or what trends are similar to purebreds. And I think it goes back to dogs who were the original dogs were called village dogs. Some people may know them as soy dogs or as pot cakes, or there are any number of dogs that are just living in close proximity to us, and they live around us and they hang out, and they're the generic dog. And I always spell it DAWG. It's a dog. You know, we know the generic dog. It's got a leg at each corner, a head at one end, a tail at the other, and it might have floppy ears or it might have semi-erect ears. And these dogs are actually the dogs that evolved into our purebred dogs. And the way that evolution happened was it was technically facilitated by humans. Okay, sweetheart, you can't take your toy under the other chair. And so what happened was many years ago, like at least 13,000, and probably closer to 30,000 years ago. The numbers are kind of a little bit spongy. And there are lots of reasons for that we could go into, but we know that it was a very long time ago. We were living in villages, and we used to walk up the mountain with our sheep, and we did that in the summer when the grass was lush and the sheep were skinny, and we'd walk them up the mountain, and they would eat lots of grass, grow nice coats, get fat, and we would walk them down the mountain. And then in the wintertime, we would keep those sheep in the valleys where they would be able to survive the winter and get skinny again. And so up the mountain in the summer, down the mountain in the winter, up the mountain in the summer, down the mountain in the winter. And wolves are not stupid. And what happened was the more confident wolves said, hey, wait a minute. There is this walking group of calorie makers. And so whenever we would butcher a sheep, we would leave certain parts of it that we didn't eat, like the lungs or maybe the liver, sometimes the heart, maybe the head, and we might not eat it. And so what would happen is the wolves would follow us, and the confident wolves would eat more, and the timid wolves would stay out in the woods. And so what happened was those wolves evolved into the village dogs that just hung out with us. The next major leap that we think happened was the flock guardians, and those are the great big, usually white, but sometimes cream or spotted dogs that just hang out with sheep. They don't eat sheep, but they eat pretty much everything other than sheep, and they follow the sheep around, and they look like sheep. And what they do is they chase off those timid wolves, bears, coyotes, any other predator that might harm the sheep, and those are the flock guardians. And what's really cool about the flock guardians is they lost the ability to hunt. They don't hunt. They are not predatory. They don't chase things down, grab them, shake them, break their neck, and consume prey. What they do is stand between the sheep and the predator and bark their fool heads off. And if confronted closely, they will become incredibly aggressive. But if not confronted, they won't be aggressive at all. And that was the first real breed of dogs. So does breed matter? Sure, because can you imagine a wolf living in a flock of sheep, not eating the sheep, not chasing down prey, but chasing off all the predators? Not really likely. So the next thing that would happen is that some people started having permanent villages. And when you have a permanent village, flock guardians, they're pretty important, but they're not following us around anymore. However, we do something really, really important, and that is we hunt. And so we started using hunting dogs, and these dogs evolved probably from the village dogs shortly after the time, and shortly is relative, a few thousand years probably. They were dogs who would accompany the hunters out and help them to find game or tree game so that the hunters would be more successful. And this is the first time that we start to see sort of cooperative work between humans and dogs. And this comes to us all from archaeology and archaeological evidence. And from there, we know that we have a number of, we have the popcorn dog again. Okay, are you going to come up and say hello? Let me get the hunting Vizsla, who is very exciting at the moment. Oh, Missy.
But if we need to pause, we can always pause.
No, that's all right. She's going to have.
But someone should. We should see a dog at least once on here. I'm surprised Christoph.
There
she's adorable.
Yes, this is Ember. Yes, do not bite my chin or my clothes or. So, anyways, the after the hunting dogs, we started seeing guarding dogs like the Molossers, so the Mastiffs. So, you know, those dogs started hanging out at the house, and they just said, never mind the sheep, we'll just hang out at the house and we'll guard the house. And again, they weren't seeking out conflict. They weren't seeking out opportunities to get into fights. She's got such a nose on her, and she's just busy smelling. You can see her on the bottom of the camera there. So, you know, at that point, what we've got are dogs who are, you know, more likely to engage in passive guarding. Well, from there, we had some dogs became herding dogs. Again, probably from the village dogs. And those dogs regained being predatory. And the predation that they engage in is actually chasing the flock, but they don't do it in such a way that's going to harm the flock. So it's a moderated predatory behavior. from that point, we started getting some really interesting ones. We got some small breed dogs, and some of those dogs engaged in behaviors such as alarm barking. So dogs like the Lhasa Apso. Lhasa Apso has a very interesting.
Yep, froze a little. So sorry, everybody. We had to move real quick. Uh, we had to move real quick for some Wi-Fi issues. But you're talking about the Lhasa Apso, which oddly enough was the last breed that bit me. I got a little love
Well,
tap from one a couple weeks ago.
well, if you think about it, the Lhasa Apso was raised or was originally selected for dogs who would bark. And this is why they're such a barky breed, is that they had an interesting job in, I think it was in Tibet, but in a monastery. And they would range out around the outer perimeter of their monastery or castle or whatever it was. And anytime that anybody came close, they would bark their fool heads off, and that would alert the mastiffs, who would then come and guard and chase off any intruders. And so, they're friendly little dogs, but they bark, bark, and bark, and bark, and bark. And so that was selected for. And when I say selected for, what I want to be aware of here, my popcorn puppy here is bouncing around like you would not believe. She is literally all four legs just bouncing up and down. So what happened was we would feed and breed the dogs that suited the need. And I think, if you can sort of remember that little rhyme, feed and breed the dogs that suit the need, that tells you all you need to know about how we developed the breeds from the village dogs to all of the many, many breeds that we've got now. Oh, this puppy. No, you are not picking up pieces of wood. There you go. There you go, kiddo. It's going to be on my lap again.
It's really interesting you talked about that, because David Ian Howell from Ethnocynology, he's an anthropologist that studies the human-dog relationship. He made a post about how you could not get domestic dogs anymore. If all the domestic dogs disappeared, the wolves that we have left over, we probably could not re-domesticate and make a new domesticated dog.
I think the thing to understand about that is that the old way of thinking about evolution was that it happened slowly, and that there was there were these sort of very gradual changes. But what we know about now is that evolution often happens in very large leaps. So that you'll go along, and then all of a sudden a trait will show up. And if it is selected for, then you will see more of that trait. Puppy, you got two choices. You can either settle in my arms or you can chew your toy down there. We're going for chew your toy down there. Oh, pop down, please. Thank you. And when I talk about evolution, what I want to be really clear here is that evolution is a well understood process. It is a super, super well understood process. And the way that evolution works is that it is, if you have a population and you select out all the ones that don't work, then whatever is left over has evolved. So let's just say that I like to use dogs in my examples. And let's just say that what you do is you select all of the dogs in a random population of dogs, of village dogs. You select out all the black ones and you say, we are not going to feed or breed all of any black dog. So the genes for black are actually dominant, but if you actively select out all the black dogs, eventually there are going to be no more black dogs. And what's left are the brown dogs, the white dogs, the dogs with spots, but no black dogs. And so what you end up doing is you have fed and bred the dogs that fit your need. And if we can just remember that, then it really explains a lot about how the breeds came out to be. So let's just say that you're living in England in the 1700s and foxes are a problem. And there is a great new sport that everybody enjoys called fox hunting. And what you do is you take your hounds and you put them down on the ground, and you probably take about 50 of them. And you and all of your friends go running around with horses, and you decide that you're going to chase the hounds and follow the hounds until they catch a fox. And that's basically the start of fox hunting. But you have one dog who just will not hunt. When all of the other dogs are hunting, he decides he is not going hunting, and he is going to instead run off and hang out with somebody's sheep, and he's going to chase them around. So you now have a behavioral phenotype that is different than what you need for fox hunting. So you're just going to say, you know what, sweetheart, you're a very lovely dog, but you are not going to go fox hunting with us anymore. I'm going to sell you to somebody who has sheep, because you are going to be much happier in there, and they are going to feed and breed you for sheep herding, and I am not going to feed and breed you for hunting. And so now what we have are the hounds that go out for fox hunting. And lo and behold, suddenly we have the foxhound. And when I say that evolution is quick, it's not long and slow the way that we used to think it was. This is a really nice little closed example of, you've got a group of dogs, and one of them is doing something different than the other. Can you find a use for that dog? Well, if you can, you're going to feed it and breed it, and you're going to get more just like it or similar.
Right.
Okay. But if you've got a dog who's a nuisance, who is, not suited to anything, then that dog is going to get turned out, and that dog is not going to be bred, and it probably isn't going to survive because nobody is going to feed it. And so this is where the breeds sort of originate from. A lot of people think about mixed breeds. Really, there are better terminologies for that, but the one that I prefer the most is the village dog. It is the primitive breed that became something else. And it became something else because we're going to do that feed and breed for what we need.
Right. And that's one of the things I tell people all the time. When I'm working with a purebred puppy, the first question I will ask is, how much research did you do on the breed?
Oh my gosh, yes. My
Right.
question is, so what do you know about
Yep.
the brown-eyed Dutch gutter hound?
Yep.
Oh, not much. That
Yeah.
is a made-up breed. That is one of my made-up breeds.
I used to call, when people would ask me what Flynn was, I would tell people that Flynn was an Argentinian tortoise hound, because we kept tortoises.
Right?
And being a dungeon master on the side, I can spin you a tale in about 5 minutes. So this kind of
Oh, yes.
segues. This segues into our next question that was submitted to me on Facebook, which is breeds that you avoid for behavior reasons or you don't recommend for behavior reasons. And I know I have my list, but I'd like to know yours.
Well, and you know that my answer is always going to come down to, it depends.
Right.
And, it depends. I do not, if I have a family coming to me and they say to me, Sue, what kind of dog would you recommend that I get for my 4 children? I am never, ever going to say a Malinois. No, we are not getting the Malinois for your 4 children. No, no
We're,
way,
we're not
no how.
we're not we're not saying Malinois often. That's just
No, no. On the other hand, if you come to me and you say to me, look at, when I was in my 20s, I did dog sport. I went, developed my career. I was involved with some protection work with my German Shepherd. I became an ultra marathoner, and I'm this really intense kind of a person. And I would really like to find a dog that's going to suit my life. And I want to get back to protection work. Oh, and by the way, I volunteer at one of the local protection clubs, and I've got, 7 friends with a Malinois, and I'm thinking, what do you think about a Malinois? I'm going to say, go ahead. You'll be fine. But if you say to me, I watched that movie Max, and the dog was so cool, and I want a dog that does what Max does. I'm like, Max was a former military dog who saw action. You do not want to actually live with Max. That is not a good idea. And I kind of think back to when I was first getting involved with dogs. I read the Canadian Book of Dogs. I've got it, the Kennel Club Book of Dogs, and it's an old book now, but it was brand new then. I'll show you this book, and if you can ever find it in a used bookstore and you're interested in dogs, this is my absolute Bible. Size 21. Here it is.
Right.
Okay. This is the book. Everybody needs a copy on their shelf if they're going to be serious about understanding dog breeds. It had the breed standard for every single breed that was recognized in Canada at the time. And that's a lot of breeds. And I sat down and I read it cover to cover. And I kept a notebook and I said, no, I do not want a Bichon Frise. I'll never brush it. I am not going to do that. And it will not be white for very long. I do not want to have any of the hounds. The hounds do not interest me. They live through their nose. This is not a breed that is going to be a good match for me. And I came up with 4 or 5 breeds that I was interested in. Some of them I've since decided, no, that would have been a really bad idea. I'm so glad you didn't go down that roller coaster. But the 2 breeds that I was particularly interested in were German Shepherds and Chesapeake Bay Retrievers. And you might be thinking to yourself, like, wow, they seem really different. Having now lived with both, I will tell you they have a lot of similarities. They are both incredibly brilliant dogs. They're very, very smart. They're very, very driven. And there is a lot to recommend both breeds. However, I went out to the dog show. The Chessie was my first choice. And I found some Chessie breeders. And I said, I would like to buy a Chesapeake Bay Retriever. And I had one guy that is, an old hunter. He's got 3 or 4 Chessies lying around him, and he looks at me and he says, you ever trained a dog before? And I said, nope, I want to have a Chesapeake, and I want to get into training, and I'm going to go to a billion classes, and I want to compete in obedience, and it's going to be really cool, and I really want a Chesapeake Bay Retriever. Please sell me a Chesapeake Bay Retriever. And he looked at me. He says, I'll tell you what. You go out and you get yourself a nice Labrador Retriever. A nice, easygoing, mellow, middle of the road Labrador Retriever. And you go to classes and you put some titles on this dog and you come back in 5 or 6 years and we'll talk. And I went away and I thought, man, he doesn't know how serious I am. He doesn't know me at all. And I was so put out. Well, I decided, well, if nobody's going to sell me a Chesapeake, and they're not that common around here, but if nobody's going to sell me a Chesapeake, I'm going to get myself a German Shepherd. So I went to the German Shepherd specialty, and I had 15 breeders in a row tell me, best dogs in the world. Anybody should have them. They're great with kids. They're great with families. They're great with working dogs. They're fabulous in the military. They're fabulous in the police. They can go tracking. They can do scent work. They can do obedience. You name it, they'll do it. They're great dogs. You should get one. And I got one. 22 months later, I euthanized her for aggression. I didn't know what I was doing. The dog I got probably did not have the best nerves in the world. Anyways, I completely overfaced her as a puppy. and I was way in over my head. And I loved the breed. There was so much about the breed that fit my life so well. I'm an active outdoorsman. I walk for miles and miles and miles a day. I go camping. I go hiking. I love training. I train all day, every day. You can see even as I'm talking to you, I'm busy feeding the pot. Ember, Ember, thank you. Do not chew your leash. Good girl. And, you know, so when I look at this, I actually made really good selections when it came to the two breeds I was interested in. But I wasn't ready for those breeds. I really wasn't. A year later, I got myself an older German Shepherd. He was about a year and a half, and he and I had 10 amazing years together. I was not ready for a younger dog. And certainly, having come at it with a 2-year-old under my belt, I had a much better idea of what I was getting into. So there are no breeds that I say, no, never, not ever. But there are a lot of breeds that I say, I can't support you getting that dog in your current circumstance. This is not going to be good welfare for you or for the dog. And I think that, every breed has somebody who says these are the easiest dogs to live with.
Right.
But I have seen almost every breed in the world fail somewhere. And the older I get, the more breeds I add to that didn't work out so well, and there are breeds that people don't expect that work out really well. So things like greyhounds tend to be fantastic dogs for people in apartments because they're slugs. They don't want to move real quick. They move real quick for about 20 seconds and they're done.
Right.
And, if you are not an outdoorsman, you're not hiking, you don't, if you are looking for a dog who is going to be happy lying on the couch and cuddling up to you, get yourself a greyhound. They're lovely dogs. If you are telling me that you want to go out in the backcountry of Ontario and you want to go hiking for 25 kilometers 3 times a week, don't get a greyhound. They will not like it.
Which is ironic because everybody assumes that they're super active dogs
No, they're
because of
sprinters.
yeah, I've met more couch potato greyhounds than anything else.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
I was working on a case recently with the giant schnauzer, what's the other name for the giant schnauzer? Russian terrier. Yeah, the big.
No, they're not the same thing. Those are two different
No,
breeds.
yeah, you're right. Russian terrier is the. I cannot remember what the other name for the giant schnauzer is. Anyways, it's
I've
your
never
big
known them by anything else.
someone. Anyways, I've seen 3 in my life.
Oh no, we
2.
have a number of them in the school. They're lovely.
The 2 that I met when I was a kennel technician were actually pretty okay dogs for the little attention that they were getting. But it was a very poor match, the last one I saw, because first off, the wife hated dogs. She did not want the dog. The husband wanted the dog, but the husband was never home. They had 3 small children. They had 1 more on the way. Um, she didn't do any type of obedience when he was under 100 pounds. So he was just a super big bouncy. And when she said, we're thinking about rehoming him, I was like, I actually kind of agree with this because he's not getting really what he needs. And you're the primary caregiver didn't really want him there, you know. But it's
Well,
interesting
and
to see.
it's really tricky. I mean, if you think about the giant schnauzer, they're used a lot in protection work in Germany. The German name for them is the Riesenschnauzer, which means giant schnauzer. But they're used in protection work. They're high drive, high intensity dogs. I had a client who had 2 of them, and they got them because they had seen them doing a military demonstration in Germany and thought these dogs were great. And they wanted to impress me by the fact that the sire was one of the top protection dogs in Germany. And I said, well, you doing protection work? And they said, no, those dogs would regularly range out 20 kilometers away and more. And I said, okay, look, you're not meeting their needs. As long as you're not meeting their needs, they are going to keep ranging out like that. And, you know, I've got a little Vishla here. She's a lovely little dog, but I'm not meeting her needs in this moment, because what she really needs in this moment is a walk. But it's -6 out here. I can't, you know, I can't take her for a walk. And it's just that her schedule is not quite where I am. So we've got to make some compromises. And if you know what you're doing, you can make those compromises. But if you don't know what you're doing, then making those compromises becomes incredibly difficult. So right now, you know, I'm keeping her busy with her dinner in a puzzle toy. I've got a chew toy for her, and I've got chicken treats that I'm scattering around for her to search for. And eventually she's going to get full and tired, and she will go to sleep. We would really like you to go to sleep, little puppy. You've been up for an hour and a half now. And, you know, if you don't find those compromises, you know, if you've got a giant schnauzer, maybe you don't do protection work, but maybe instead you play tug every day and you do obedience work and you do tracking. You know, I've got a German Shepherd. We do obedience, tracking, nose work, rally. Those are the formal sports we're doing right now. And we compete in all of them because that's in part what I signed up for, but it's also in part what he needs. That's what he was bred to do. I selected based on that. And, you know, that's what he needs. So I give him what he needs. Okay, we're going to take a little break here between questions because somebody needs to pee again.
All right, we're going to pause real quick.
Yep.
Okay, we're back. So we're going to move on to our next question, which was again submitted on Facebook. The question is, what are the breeds you can't go wrong with?
Well, you know what I'm going to tell you, Ben. It depends. It depends. You know, if you come to me and you say, Sue, you know, all I've ever wanted to do is search and rescue, and I want to be, you know, deployed to remote mountainous areas, and I want a dachshund, I'm going to tell you, you are going to be very unhappy. I do have some family dogs I really, really like. In 33 years of behavior consulting, I've seen hundreds of different breeds. I have only ever seen one example of each of the following who had behavior problems for family pets. And that is the English setter, if you want a big dog, and the Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, if you're looking for a small dog. And I've only ever had one behavior problem in each. And in both cases, the problems resolved quickly and easily. They are not the rocket scientists of the dog training world, but that means that they are not going to learn how to open up your refrigerator and retrieve the Sunday roast.
This is true.
You know, it's what I call the airplane question, right? You get on an airplane, what do? I'm a dog trainer. Oh, what's the smartest breed of dog? I always look at them and say, why are you interested in the smartest breed and not the willingness breed or the kindest breed or the easiest to live with breed? Why are you interested in the smartest breed? And they're like, well, I thought the smartest dogs would be easy to live with. And I'm like, no, they're actually not. No. As you know, with your border collie friend.
Yep.
You know?
Oh, no, I've been telling clients that all the time. When we brought him in last year, I was like, oh, no, I'm a professional dog trainer. I can handle it. And by the end of the holiday season, all of the ornaments were on the top foot of the Christmas tree. None of the lights worked. Now this year the Christmas tree made it through unscathed, but I have devoted more time, more energy, more money into Barley than I have into any other dog.
Yeah, I can believe it. And I mean, what I will tell you, having raised many, many, many high drive puppies and high drive smart puppies, I will tell you that an awful lot of the solution to that, it happens between 5 and 10 weeks. And you need a breeder who is good at imposing boundaries for those puppies. And most breeders say, Mama knows best. I'm going to let Mama decide what these puppies can do. And Mama may have very good house manners and very good rules, but she doesn't know that you don't want your dog to climb the Christmas tree. She has no
Right.
clue about that, you
Right.
know? And so what happens a lot of the time is that those puppies, people discount the impact of a good breeder. A good breeder is going to be teaching those puppies, if you scream at me, the food bowl stays up here. And mom will, at about 5 weeks, go, oh, you guys don't know the food bowl is up there rule? Well, I'm leaving and I'm taking the milk bar with me. So you just go ahead and figure that out. And so what people don't realize is, smart dogs, things I have had smart dogs do in my life. I had a very smart service dog that I was training one time. He was working on how to open the door for his handler, so he would hit the wheelchair accessible button. So I'm out to lunch with him one day, and we're having lunch, and we're having a nice lunch with a professor from the local university, and we're talking about behavior. And all of a sudden, I see this white tail go by, and I'm in the back part of a booth, and I'm like, oh no. And I jumped up and I caught him between the indoor and the outdoor, because he'd been lying under the table and been giving some thought to the matter and thought, I'm not having a good time anymore, and I know how to open that door. And let's
Yep.
give that a whirl.
Yep.
You don't want to live with that kind of intelligence. Um, it's lovely to have an intelligent dog like Hawkeye, who is not just intelligent, but he's incredibly intuitive and incredibly biddable. And he was probably the easiest puppy I've ever raised. He walked out of the box and said, oh, look, a house. Right. So let's just be clear. Did we get up on the furniture in here? No. Okay, I'm good. And, oh, these are my toys? Yeah, I'll play with my toys. Like he was just very, very easy. And gosh, there's a lot to be said for having an easy dog.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what is it? The squeaky wheel gets the oil. Uh, I'll say this between, because the things they used to complain about with Kristoff. When I go to spend time with Kristoff one on one, it is a
Yep,
vacation. It's a break versus when now. Don't get me wrong. Barley anticipates what I want and is great about doing it. But he's independent. He's fast. He'll figure a problem out. If I'm too slow figuring it out, he'll figure it out for me. But I feel like a lot of times
absolutely.
smart is not what you want. Smart is not always what you want.
No, don't get smart dogs. Just don't do
So
it.
well, so that's gonna. I feel like we've got a good answer on that one. I want to move on to this one because I got two people who asked about this, and that is doodles. What are
Oh,
your thoughts?
oodles
I
and
have
oodles of
I
noodles
have
and doodles.
many I have many strong opinions, but what are your thoughts on doodles?
Again, this is it depends things. It seems to be very regional. Certainly, when I talk to colleagues, you and I have talked about some of the doodles you see as being lovely dogs. The doodles that we see here tend to not be particularly aware of their limits when it comes to other dogs. And I've seen them do things like just crash into social situations and barge through the party. And that can be really hard to live with if you're a dog trainer. And I've worked with a number of them on dog manners, and they just don't seem to be real intuitive about that around here. And I think my husband John has put it very well. He says, I finally figured out what the attraction to doodles is. I said, oh. He says, they're happy. They're all happy. They're happy dogs. They're not brain surgeons, but they're happy. And you know, I think to a certain extent locally, that's right. So we've got, you know, some prepotent sires who have said, you know, here we are, and I'm going to pass on my happy gene. But I do see some really serious problems with the breed, the cross. The very first problem is people are not being thoughtful in the crosses. When you take a very upright, square dog like a poodle and you mix it with an elongated dog like a German Shepherd, you are going to run into structural abnormalities like you would not believe. You are going to end up with dogs who are taller in the back than the front, who are, you know, running into all kinds of health problems. And something that people have forgotten about genetics is if you breed a healthy dog to a healthy dog, you're probably going to get a pretty healthy dog. But if you breed a dog with hip dysplasia to a dog with no hip dysplasia, the chances are good that you're not going to get particularly good hips. And the big problem about hips is it's a polygenetic trait, which means there's a lot of genes involved in it. And it's a multifactorial trait, which means that did mom get good nutrition when the puppies were in utero? Did the puppies get good nutrition when they were first on the ground? Have they had good nutrition as they grew up? Were they being asked to jump up and off things that they shouldn't have been? And so some of these traits we can't figure out, but others of them we can. So in particular in the Labradoodle, if you're breeding to a Labrador who carries the genetics for progressive retinal atrophy, that's not a good idea, even though the poodle doesn't have it. And so we've got all of these sort of traits that are lining up on top of each other. Some of them are being endorsed and we're getting more of it. Some of them are going away and we're getting less of it. But on the whole, we get a very random series of traits. And I think what's really interesting, and we see it now in the Cobber dog, which is the breed that has evolved from the Doodle, is the, you know, they're doodles bred to doodles, so they're F2 and F3 hybrids. What we're seeing there is dogs who are, they're not breeding true. A lot of the problems I see with doodles is the expectation. So, oh man, I really love the Bernese Mountain Dog, and I wish they were hypoallergenic and didn't shed. So they get a Bernedoodle, which is becoming more and more common. They've bred a tractor to a Maserati, so we never know, are we going to get the high-end octane fast poodle genes, or are we going to get the slow, steady Eddie Berner genes? But what we do know is there are a ton of different coat types that are produced from that cross. So are you going to get a breed that doesn't shed? Maybe, maybe not. Most likely not. They're probably going to shed. Are they going to be hypoallergenic? Probably not. And are you going to get one of the very, very difficult to care for coat types where you have an undercoat of very, very soft, fine fur on top of or underneath an overcoat of wiry, long, scraggly fur that doesn't have a lot of kink to it? And kink matters, you know. When you're talking about a poodle coat, having the proper kink allows it to lie properly. It allows it, when you comb it out, to fluff properly, and it helps to protect the dog. But if you get some of these doodle coats, I mean, all I can say is anybody who gets a doodle, from the first day that you get home, spend 5 minutes twice a day grooming that dog. Don't tell me he doesn't look like it, work on it. Teach that dog to be groomed. And make sure you have a groomer on side before that puppy comes home, and start doing happy visits. Start doing, 5-minute visits to the groomer where they get the clippers and they just, they have a little clip. But don't expect that you're going to get out of the box a dog who is perfect. And beware, a lot of the temperaments that they are crossing, the poodle and the Labrador temperament, not bad. The golden and the Labrador temperament, or golden and poodle temperament, they are less compatible. And locally, we see a lot who are very, very resource guarding individuals. They're guarding everything, and that's hard to live with. But you start looking at some of these, the poodle is actually a retriever, even though it's not in the retrieving group, but that's what it is. It was originally bred to retrieve ducks in Germany. And the golden and labs, those are retrievers, so at least you're not going way out. But when you start talking about a German Shepherd Poodle cross, you're talking about a breed, you're going to get a very, very active breed. You are probably going to get a breed with orthopedic issues because their structures are not compatible. And you're going to get a breed that is incredibly smart and probably on their own agenda. Well, that is not a house pet. That is absolutely not a house pet. And the more we go along, the more ridiculous these crosses get. I had a Weimaraner doodle. He did point, but man, I got to tell you what, a fast, nervous, anxious dog. That was not what I would consider to be a successful match, and none of them were silver. So, they didn't get the color that they had hoped to get. We start getting some crazy mixes, but then we've got other mixes too that people are less familiar with, but that we have a lot more experience with. And one of them is the lurcher. And the lurcher is a cross between a sighthound and either a terrier or a herding dog, which sounds like a very odd mix. But they bred those so that they would, back in the Middle Ages, so that they would get the speed in the border collie.
Right.
And so that they would get the speed for dogs who were ratting. And so they would take like an Italian Greyhound and a Jack Russell type dog and cross them to get a faster ratter. And we know a lot about those breeds because we've been breeding them for hundreds of years. We know that the F2 generations don't tend to breed true, but we know a lot more about what we're getting. Lurchers are not my cup of tea, but when I get one in, I know what I'm dealing with. They tend to be very smart, very fast, very intelligent, very responsive dogs. They tend towards independence. Makes sense, right? And we've got that experience of them. Some people love lurchers. They just think they're great. We have something that I refer to as the sports cur. So if you've ever heard of a border, which is a border collie, border terrier cross, you're going to get a smaller border collie type dog with, don't get one, Ben. It will make you very unhappy. You do not want a border.
I'm just thinking between the cats and like the small animals we have, I don't think that'd be a great idea.
Oh no, very bad plan. Don't get one. You will be unhappy.
Right.
So we have sports curs of a variety of types. We have some lurcher border collie crosses that are being bred around here for agility, and they tend to be very gracile, 40 to 60 pound dogs, and they are incredibly responsive and very, very, very fast.
Okay.
So, there are some other mixes around. And then, of course, we have the poos, which are the miniature poodles that are bred with some of the small breed dogs, like the Cockapoo, which is a cocker spaniel poodle cross. And, there are some lovely cockapoos. Not my cup of tea, but again, what your life is like is really what is dependent.
Right.
And
Right.
and you got to know what you want.
So do we have time for one more question? Because I'm trying to
Um,
time this and everything. Yeah.
we have
Um,
all the questions you like, Ben.
so what I so this is for me because this is something we were talking about this in our break just now. Um, One of the things that I always when I meet a client with a purebred dog and I'm looking at the behavior problems, and a lot of times it is unmet needs. I get a lot of military clients. These are young guys who are going through flight school. They're transient, so they're here for maybe a couple of months. They're living in an apartment or they're sharing a house with a bunch of other guys, and they often go to herding dogs. And I keep trying to discourage them from herding dogs. And so, I when I brought Barley in, what I thought I wanted was Flynn was my heart dog, and he was a border collie miniature poodle mix, almost 50-50. And I was like, well, maybe I need the border collie brain. And it is a very different show, a very different experience. And I know I'm reading too many books about shepherding for Jennifer's comfort because I'm reading a lot of books about shepherding with border collies. And I've invested, hundreds of dollars in herding balls. And what I'm noticing is my lifestyle is beginning to change because I am committed to like wanting to spend time with this dog in a way that he gets something out of it. Is that I don't always feel like that's the right decision for owners though. So my question is do you recommend a lifestyle change when it comes to the owner who has that breed? Do they really need to upend or try to change what they're interested in to fit that breed's needs? Or
So,
should we have a different
I'll,
conversation?
well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to make Jennifer's life just a little bit easier. Number one, Pensacola is not a good place to raise sheep. You will have
You're
noticed
correct.
a significant lack of sheep in Pensacola.
You are correct.
If you're going to get sheep, you're going to get the kind of sheep called hair sheep that they have in Barbados. They're meat sheep and they don't herd real well. So just let me reassure Jennifer, don't get sheep. Next thing I'm going to tell you is herding is a complex sequence of behaviors, is an
Right.
incredibly complex sequence of behaviors. But at its core, it is the dog working with the handler. And that is why border collies make fantastic agility dogs. They make fabulous, fabulous, fabulous dogs that are good at obedience. They're good at fly ball. They're good at a wide variety of sports because the common part is you tell the dog what to do and then stand back and get out of the way.
Right. Right.
And it takes, I think, a very particular type of person to work with a border collie. I do not do well. I much prefer working with my German shepherds who are spending their entire day looking back at me and saying, so what do you think? Was that right? Could we do it again? Do you want more? Is it like this? Where the border collie is busy saying to you in the morning, okay, are we going to herd sheep? Are we going to herd sheep today? Are we going to herd sheep now? Can we herd sheep now? There are sheep, And then you take them out, you show them the herd, and you say, I would like you to take these sheep. I want you to split the rams from the ewes. I want you to move the rams over into the pen over there. And I want you to move the ewes over here. And I want you to get from there, I want you to sort the lambs from the ewes. I want you to put the lambs over here and the ewes over there. And the border collie says, got it. And they take
Right.
off and it's not that simple. It really isn't. The shepherd has an integral part. But when the sheep or when the border collie is off at a distance doing his thing, he does not need you to micromanage how he does it.
Right.
So I would encourage you to get involved with things like tribal. which is all about you helping the dog to see what the task is, but the dog giving you the task back.
Yeah, we've
And
been quite good with that. Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
look at things like agility, where, and I have a friend, you do not need to run around like a Fruit Loop in the heat of Florida. You train early in the morning and you teach the dog, I'm not moving around you. I'm going to tell you, go left, go right, go over, go through, you know, tip the teeter. And then what you do is you get out of the dog's way and you let them do their job. And, so do you have to change your life? Maybe. What I'm always looking at as a behavior consultant is when I'm faced with a dog and the dog's got some sort of difficulty, they're not fitting in. I am going to tell people, you absolutely must meet this dog's needs for food, water, shelter, and exercise. If you are not meeting his needs for food, water, shelter, and exercise, I can't help you. But I get really concerned when I think about the people that I've worked with who have entirely changed their lives. I have had people who have moved home. I have had people who have invested $60,000 into chain link fencing. I have had people who have, um, you know, decided that they're not going to have any more children. Like, don't change your entire life. What you're looking for is you're looking for a compromise. So when you talk about your military clients who are here for a couple of months and they decide that there is nothing for it, but they have to have, I don't know, they have to have a border collie. I'm going to say to them, okay, are you meeting your dog's need for food, water, shelter, and exercise? And they're like, oh, I'm a runner, and I'm like, that wasn't what I asked. I
right.
asked, is this dog getting exercise? Because you, sir, are most likely wearing running shoes when you run, and you live in Pensacola for the next 4 months while you're at flight school, and you need to understand that most of your running is done at work. And yeah, maybe someday you'll be able to run with him, but it's sure not going to be in Pensacola at 11 o'clock in the morning. It's
Right.
just not going to happen. So what I say to them then is, are you willing to get up at 4 a.m. because you have to be at work at 6 and take the dog down to the beach and run him off leash for an hour or wherever is safe? I know you guys have an unearthly amount of things that will eat you where you are.
Yes.
You know, will you take him down and make sure that this dog gets the hour of hard off leash exercise that he needs? Oh no, you're not willing to do that. All right. Are you willing to enroll him in a good day training program with a good trainer who is going to be able to meet his needs while you're at work? Oh, you don't have the money to do that. Okay. He is 6 months old right now, and he is driving you crazy. And this may not be a match at this time. It doesn't mean that you won't be able to have your border collie once you're mid-career, although you may have children and that may replace your interest. But, what it means is now is not a good time. Now is not the time that we want to get the border collie and expect that border collie to enjoy your life and you to enjoy him. So before we rehome the dog, let's just have a few conversations. Why did you want this breed of dog? Is always my first question. It comes back to what you were saying about, I always ask them, what did you know about this breed before you got it? And usually what they know is something very superficial. They're smart. I think
Right.
they're beautiful. I like dogs that are green with yellow polka dots. That is my heart dog. It makes me sing. Whatever it is you need to know in your own self, that's why I got the dog. Okay. I have German Shepherds because, quite honestly, they can keep up to me. And that may sound ridiculous, but my normal training day involves at least 3 hours a day where I am training animals,
Right.
whether that's my horse or my dog, because that's what I do. That's who I am. And I
Right.
chose a breed that's going to fit that. And then the next thing that I'm going to say is, okay, that's what you wanted in that particular breed. Why did you choose this individual? So if we could go back and, look back with Barley, I would have told you to find the most laid back border collie you can find because you live in Pensacola, right? I mean, it's hot. Anytime that you're going to properly exercise this dog is going to involve night. Most of
Yeah.
us at night want to sleep. And so I would have said to you, yeah, sure, we can probably find you the individual of that breed that you're looking for, but we are looking for the most laid back pair of border collies you can. I mean, I want these dogs to be slugs of the border collie world because he's going to have to go and live in a climate that is going to prohibit him from doing a lot of what he wants to do.
Right.
And it's not that I'm going to say you need to change your whole life. I am going to say you probably don't want to get up at 3 a.m. when it's cool enough for him to actually enjoy that exercise that he needs.
I mean, I've done it.
Yeah,
But
I know you have.
Again, it's what what I tell people is what I have decided is not what I would recommend for most owners to decide, and that is this was a shakeup that I am choosing to experience. Not most people don't want that. They're working a 40-hour work week. They have 2.5 kids. Those kids have extracurriculars. You can't change your life on a whim like that. So,
No. And the other thing that I'm going to say is some of the things that I've seen happen, they happen completely inadvertently and they're not fair to the dog. So
right.
one of the things I think about is how often do you see huskies where you are? More often than you should.
More often than I'd like. More
Yeah.
often than I'd like. Yeah.
And, I've got this Vizsla puppy here who needs to wear a sweater to go out to toilet, needs to, have boots on to go out for a long walk, needs a lot of things that I can't provide for her. And that's, well, I mean, I can provide for her in the short term because I am providing them for her. But as part of my life, that's not going to work in my life. I am not going to do well with a Vizsla, even though I am enjoying training this dog. She is a ball to train. She is so much fun to train. But honestly, it would not make my heart sing to live with a dog that I had to do that with because she can't go out for 8 hours in the dead of winter. And I
Right.
like doing that. That's fun for me.
Right.
So I think that we have to remember that when we say, okay, that's what I've chosen to do, you had the sense to choose a dog that would cope a lot of the time with the climate that you live in. And if you had tried to do this with, say, a Belgian Tervuren with all of that hair,
Right.
similar personality, I would have said to you, Ben, give your head a shake. This dog is not going to cope well with your universe. So I think it's something that we've really got to think about.
And that, I think that's the biggest thing when we talk about breeds and breed specific behavior is we really I try to educate my owners, and whenever I finish a course with a client with a breed specific breed, I always ask them, are you going to do this again? Are you going to get this breed? I was working with a German Shepherd puppy yesterday, and when I say puppy, he's 6 months old. He's 70 pounds. He's a long haired. He's got a slope back.
Oh,
He probably
man.
has to display. Yeah. And this is their couple is like 23 and 24. And he's in flight school and she's working full time as an accountant. And he wanted a German Shepherd because German Shepherds look cool. And,
Yep.
I asked them, I was like, are you going to do this again? And she goes, oh, no, the next dog is going to be something that doesn't have to be groomed and doesn't have to go on 10-mile walks every day. And because I'm training him right now to put on boots on the dog so they can take them for walks in the summer. They're
Yep.
here for another 2 years. So
Yeah.
it's a rough situation.
Yeah. And, I mean, I remember when we got John's German Shepherd, the breeder said, "Are there any deal breaker traits?" And we both looked at her and said, "Long hair. We won't take a long haired German Shepherd." And a lot of people say, oh, but, they appear from time to time in the breed. No big deal. And I'm like, no big deal. Are you kidding? This dog goes on 80-kilometer, 15-day backpacking trips.
Mhm.
If you're going to go on a 40-mile walk with your dog and you have to carry a grooming kit with you, you
Yep.
can't do it. It's not, I mean, 80 kilometers is a long way to go. And they're in country like the Appalachian Trail, so they're in
Right.
country that's a lot of up and down. They don't have time for that. And yeah, there is burdock out there. There's burdock and there's all kinds of seeds that are going to get in the dog's coat. Plus the fact that we depend on lakes and rivers for the dog to get into to cool off.
Right.
And because that's really important as well. And a long-haired German Shepherd does not dry out very quickly.
That is exactly why Barley will never see the beach. Is between the sand spurs, he's got, the coat brushes right out for the most part, but it does require brushing. Sand spurs alone, I'm not brushing him out of my fuzzy velociraptor. I'm not doing that. Uh, well, okay. I was going to ask. You've answered a lot of the other questions that I already had a list for and everything. Um, any closing thoughts about working with purebred dogs from one of the experts in the field, I would consider? Um, any closing remarks that you would want to share with people watching this about
Uh,
purebred dogs?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The very first thing is get to know more than one example of the dog. So don't get a German Shepherd when you have met one of them. Go out, go to the dog shows, and after the dog is finished being shown, approach the breeder. Do not approach the breeder before they've shown the dog. And one of the things a lot of people don't realize is when the breeder and the handler are at the dog show, they're at work. Okay, they're busy. And that's how they're making their living. And the way that dog shows work is we go out, we compare our dogs, and we say which dogs meet the standard most closely. And when we know which dog meets the standard most closely, that helps us to select which dogs we will breed to which other dogs. So they are busy at work because they are trying to show their dogs to their best effect. It is not just all about, let's groom them and make them pretty. It's not just a beauty pageant. It is actually how we compare which dogs are going to be good matches for our dogs to breed to. After they're done in the ring, watch where they're sitting and approach them politely and say, "Hi, I'd like to talk to you about your breed." And ask them questions. You should go in with some idea about the breed that you're learning about to begin with and say, tell me about the big behavioral priorities that you see in your breed. So if you're coming up and you say to me, "Sue, what are the behavioral priorities for your German Shepherds?" I'm going to say behaviorally, they need a ton of stimulation. They need training, they need boundaries, and they need exercise. And I can tell you that. If the breeder says, "Well, I want to breed good temperaments." Well, what's a good temperament? Because a good temperament for a pointer is going to be a really crappy temperament for a livestock guardian. You know,
Right.
they just don't work together. So you need to be asking, what are your behavioral priorities, is how I ask it now. I don't ask them, tell me about what you're breeding for. I just say, what are your behavioral priorities? What do you see as the behavioral setbacks for this breed? What do I need to know about this breed? And here is my trick question for pro handlers and breeders. This is what I am looking for in the breed. Who would you recommend that I talk to? Don't ask them if their dogs will meet your needs,
Right.
and talk to more than one breeder. So I'll tell you, I was training a service dog at one point. We were looking for a standard poodle. So I went to the Poodle National Specialty, and I saw more poodles than you can believe. And I walked around and I asked this, like, I'm looking for a dog who can grow up to be a service dog. He needs to be incredibly resilient. He needs to be fairly low energy, and he needs to be able to cope with difficult situations and be able to still stay on task. Every single breeder and all of the show handlers said to me, this is the breeder you need to go and see. So I went to that breeder, asked the same question, and she says, you know, you're pretty much describing the kind of dog that I'm trying to produce. And I have a line that I'm really happy with. And she didn't say, and you should buy my dogs.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I think that that's really important. Now, beyond that, you need to have a breeder that in 10 years, you can call them up and they can go, hey, yeah, glad to hear from you. You want to have a breeder who's going to be your partner. And, you know, I've had some incredible breeders in my life, and most of them I still talk to on a regular basis. And, you know, I think it's really important as well to take a look at you know, the breeder and say, okay, you know, I'd like to meet both the dam and the sire. Usually the sire is not going to be owned by the breeder. That's something a lot of people don't realize, is that good breeding means that most of the time you are going to take the dam to the sire to be bred. Very occasionally, the breeder will own both. So I can think of two situations where I bought spectacular dogs where the breeder owned both the dam and the sire. But they are the exception, not the rule. And, you know, get to know both the dam and the sire when the dam is not pregnant. If you want a puppy,
Yeah.
and you want a puppy the way that you want a loaf of bread, then don't. You do not want that puppy.
Right.
You need to understand that finding the right dog is a little bit like getting married. Okay. It takes time to do well. And so then what you do is, you know, you're getting to know them. Plan on spending 9 months to a year to find the right dog. And when you find that right dog, let your breeder choose the puppy. Do not try and choose that puppy. I don't choose my own puppies. My breeder chooses my puppy. And I've been doing this for many, many, many years. And the reason that I say that is, if you have a good breeder, they have probably been sleeping in the whelping box with the litter since the litter was born. They know that litter. When you go in, you want a facility that is clean and smells good. It should not smell bad.
Right.
And you want to see a variety of toys that the puppies can play on. You should be seeing things that they can climb on and over. You do not want to see them on a cement floor with newspaper on the ground. That is a recipe for puppies not being able to walk well. And you really want to be able to see that these puppies have had all of their needs met for play, for time with people. They should have had visitors to the litter. I really like Suzanne Clothier's puppy raising protocol, and that's for breeders. It's brilliant. That is to my mind, that's the gold standard.
Right.
Yeah. And so, you know, once you find all of those things, you got a fantastic opportunity to get an amazing dog. And I think, you know, too often we're looking for a dog right now. We need to get it right now. I'm going to flight school. I think I need a dog today. It's like, no, you don't, man. This dog's going to be in your life for 10 years. You need the right dog. This is super, super important, because although you have to make changes, And no, I'm not supporting you getting a herd of sheep. Um, you know,
It'll be geese. It'll be herding geese or weeder geese.
I'm still not in favor, but although you are going to have to make changes in your life, you shouldn't have to make so many changes that your life is turned upside down. We get dogs to enhance our lives. So let's choose at least as wisely as we would choose someone to go on a date with.
That's good. That's a good way of putting that.
I I I always look at getting a dog as being very much like we're going on a date. We're gonna meet the breeder, meet mom and dad, and we're gonna see the litter. And I have had litters where I've told the breeder, I'm interested in your puppies, but I want to see how this litter shapes up before I decide. And I've had breeders say to me, well, I might sell that puppy to somebody else. And I say, and I hope that you find the perfect place for it, but I'm not sure just yet. So let me get back to you.
Right.
And, we don't want a breeder who's giving us pressure. You got to buy the puppy. You got to buy the puppy. No, you don't got to buy the puppy. You got to buy the right puppy. Super, super important. So
I think that's the best way to put that, because I think we also, at least in my experience, I think we kind of neglected this as a relationship.
yeah.
And I know you and I understand that as professionals. I try to instill that in the owners that I work with, is that this is not your child, and this is also not your spouse, but this is a relationship that you are going to be spending a lot of time with, and that's something you got to factor into all of this.
Absolutely.
Sue, it's been absolutely wonderful. Every time I talk to you, I always learn something.
Oh, good.
And that's why you're the first one on this. Where can
Thank
people
you.
find you? Where can people find you online? So I can plug your
Okay, so
socials.
you can look for me on the Dog Trainers Crucible, on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I think maybe Instagram, but I'm not sure. So I'm on that. If you want my website, it's the Dog Trainers Crucible.ca. And I have a bunch of courses. Those are geared primarily to professionals. I certainly hope that we've got new up and coming trainers who want to come and learn from me, but they're really geared towards people who are in the industry. If you're interested in it, and it's before the end of April the beginning of April in 2025, I've got a course called the Good Dog Model of Changing Behavior, and that is currently available with a coupon for free as long as you get it early. And as of April, that sale will be done. And the coupon is just capital G, good, capital D, dog, and all caps free, all as one word. If you are a pet owner and you want to find information about my programs for pet owners, I have online classes. I've got behavior consulting. Ben has consulted with me on a number of cases. If you're looking for that, I'm at dogsinthepark.ca. All one word, dogsinthepark.ca. Or you can find Dogs in the Park on social media. And the course I would recommend on there for every dog person is the 1 hour down stay. You knew I was going to say the 1 hour down stay.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. Which I remember my reaction to that was that is total BS. There's no way you're going to be able to do it. And
Isn't it great?
I have been working towards it. This past summer I was working with a client, and because Christoph has always been the one that struggled with it. I actually put Christoph in a downstate, and I dropped his leash in the client's front yard and worked with the client for about 17 minutes. And I turned around and was like, oh, I brought Christoph to this class. So he's been doing phenomenal.
Awesome.
But yeah, this is why you're the first person to do these conversations with me. Again, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to link all of Sue's websites and on tag her socials on Facebook, and I'll link all the websites on the YouTube post. And honestly, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh,
I
thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Send me the links, and I will share them around.
Sure, and this will be edited, and hopefully it'll be up tomorrow. But
Ooh,
thank you so much for
very
doing
exciting.
this. I very much appreciate this. And go check Sue's material out. She's got some great stuff out there. You can always learn something from Sue. All right. Well,
Thanks so much, Ben. That's really, really kind.
thank you. I have to go feed dogs now.
Okay.
'Cause
Take
it is that
care.
time. All right. I'm gonna stop recording right here.